Okay guys, what I want to do now is I want to explain about how we pour our milk, okay? To be honest, once we get our perfect textured milk, everything then is controlled by the way that we pour, and it's a real confidence thing, okay? When people are a little bit nervous, they get a bit tentative and they start to pour they're sort of a bit shaky and a bit nervous when they're pouring. So what tends to happen is people start to pour really, really slow. And when they pour really slow, what happens is the milk starts to pull away in terms of break away between the foaminess and the wateriness. So it's really important to get a nice even flow. I'm just using water to describe. The other part I wanted to say is there's two parts to pouring. There's the blending of the milk with the coffee, and then there's the putting the foam, the amount of foam into the cup. So I'll explain that. But firstly, just to give you a quick idea, the way I explain is it's almost like having a jug of iced water, okay? Now, a jug with water and ice cubes. The ice cubes represents the foam, okay? So if I'm pouring a jug of ice water, there's two ways I can do it. I can either pour higher and slower, and the ice cubes or the foam stays in the jug. The alternative is I can pour low and close, and the ice cubes come into the cup, being the foam comes into the cup, okay? So for example, if I'm pouring a flat white, I'm gonna blend through the coffee. I'm gonna stay at a little bit of height until I get almost to the top of the cup, and then I'll come down and put in some foam. If I'm doing a cappuccino, it's the same thing. I'm blending through. I get about halfway up and I come down and I let the foam come in, which is my cappuccino. And if I'm doing my latte, same thing. I'm blending it through. I get about 3/4 the way up, and that's when I would come down and just put some ice cubes or some foam into the cup to give us that texture, okay? So I'm gonna demonstrate with milk. Okay guys, I'm gonna show you how to texture and pour a cappuccino, okay? I'm not gonna try and get any latte art or presentation. I want to show the technique that's involved. It's about having a smooth pour, blending through the coffee, and then at that point where we drop into the cup with the spout of the jug and produce our foam. So I'm going to show you the variances between cappuccino, latte and flat white. So I've got my espresso shot. I'm just going to texture my milk quickly. I texture the milk the same. I gently break the surface. I'm thickening the milk and I'm good. Now I'm just bringing to temperature. It's now too hot to touch. Off. Out, wipe and purge. Keep the milk moving, don't allow it to sit. If you let it to sit, it will start to break away. I've got my espresso shot, I can season with chocolate. Okay, swirl before you pour. So the initial part is to blend. Nice and smooth and just blend. The cup is now half full, okay? So now is when I can come down and let my foam come in. Just pour into the center. Don't try and do anything fancy and cut it out. That way, I blend at the start, I get halfway up the cup, and then I can come down close and just let the foam produce, and you'll just get natural presentation, okay? So that's how I do my cappuccino. Of course, now I'm gonna do my latte. It's the same, but instead of coming down halfway, I'm gonna come down about 3/4. Same thing with my milk. Quickly texture. A little bit of aeration. I'm done. I bring it to temperature. Too hot to touch. Turn off. Straight out. Wipe and purge. If there's a little bit of bubbles in the milk, I can just give it a quick little tap and just pop those bubbles out. I've got my latte. Swirl the milk. Swirl my crema. Just sometimes breaking up the crema just helps. Same thing, okay? So I'm just pouring gently through, just mixing. Okay, about 3/4, and that's when I then come down and let the foam come in. And I can just cut out. Okay, so there's two distinct parts to the pouring process, but the whole time it's not about being too fancy, it's just about having a nice smooth even flow. Last one I'll do would be a flat white. Same thing. Purge. A little bit of texture. Maybe a fraction less for a flat white. It's still nice and smooth. Bring into temperature. Off. Out. Wipe. Purge. Again, a little tap. Swirl before you pour. And same thing, the flat white. People will drink flat whites just because they don't like the rich creaminess of the milk. They like it to taste more smooth. So same thing, I can just pour and just blend. And I can wait right towards the end. Now I can just come down and just let the milk and the little bit of foam come through. So that way I can see my cappuccino. I've got nice creamy texture on top, okay? But it's smooth throughout. Your latte, you can see you've got nice creamy foam on top, but it's still really smooth and it's got some nice smooth texture to drink. It's not over frothed. And then your flat white is just a little bit thinner. But again, it's all about getting the right texture so that when people drink the coffee, they have that smooth, creamy texture throughout, flavor of the coffee, flavor of the milk, and just getting that ratio right, okay? So I'll go into more details later, but for now, that's how the pouring technique is, blending and then just producing the foam. Nice and smooth, happy days. Just wanted to make a quick point about pouring the takeaway coffees, because obviously the dine-in coffees, we're so aware of having really nice presentation in the cup. Takeaway's a little bit different, and because of the shape of most of them as well, they're a little bit narrower and a little bit taller in a lot of instances, and it's really easy to over froth the cup simply by the way we pour. So I'm just going to demonstrate quickly here. I'm just going to texture my milk the same. So just for example, if I'm just going to pour a latte, just for same thing, just nice smooth even milk. And just bring to temperature. Same thing, it's really all about just getting the blending right. So I'll just break my crema, swirl my milk, and then when I'm pouring, I'm almost pouring down the side of the cup. So a little bit high, nice and smooth, and I'm just letting the milk and the coffee just blend together. And I can just come down at the end and give a little bit of a finish, okay? Now that's going to naturally start to settle within the cup, okay? Lid on and gone. But the idea is that you don't want it too, and you can see straight away that for a latte, cappuccino, even with chocolate on top, it's nice and smooth, but it's not going to be too, you're not going to run the risk. So it's important, have the jug just pouring down the side of the cup like I did, not too low, but just at a little bit of height and just pouring, and you're just blending it through, so when the customer takes a sip through the lid, they just get full coffee flavor and the right blended ratio. So that's takeaway coffees.